So, as you guys know, the channel launched because of SUSVARAs. They were the first review 3 years ago. And last week we released on the 3rd anniversary, the 3-year anniversary, with the SUSVARA re-review, pushing it to its limits on, during the CMA Hi-Fi show, $400,000 worth of equipment. And it's honestly a great pleasure to talk to Dr. Fang,
the
guy behind the drivers themselves, and for all of your wallets not to have any money left in it. So, hi, it's a pleasure.
Hi.
Can you tell me a little bit about the history of SUSVARAs from your perspective?
Okay.
For example, 6 months before its development up to the day you said, okay, it's time this went out, it's ready.
Sure.
2017, basically going back.
Yes. So actually, I would actually like to talk from the 2 years before that day.
Okay.
Yeah. So we start to do the planar headphone technology since 2009, 2010.
Okay.
At that time, I was studying in my PhD degree, majored in nanochemistry, nanotech.
Gotcha.
At that time, it's a kind of semi-DIY project. So I have the engineer team in my country. They actually do things very as a kind of hobbyist.
Yes.
So we were lacking the ideas to do everything quantitative. So which means that to do everything in very accurate parameters.
Gotcha.
And then so after I graduated in the end of 2010, I set up the lab and then do some research according the scientific background. So I think it should be a way to make the technology to be more like a science and research instead of the DIY hobbyist.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I set up the lab. In about 3 or 4 years, we did very little models being released. We actually did the experiment one by one. Some very basic thing like if we change one parameter, one single parameter, how are you going to impact the system of the diaphragm with the even more complicated, the driver or the full headphones. So after 3 or 4 years hard working in the lab all day and all night, we actually got a whole bunch of data which benefit a lot for the future development. Then we have the HE560 and HE1000 being released.
Yes.
Right. Comparing to what we did before, their sound are more accurate, and the distortion curve is more like linear versus loudness than before.
Okay.
Right. So remember, there's a lot of planar headphones, including our previous old models, that in the low output from the amplifier, there's much bigger the distortion than in the high voltage. So we actually improved over that. Even in the low volume, there are less distortion. So that is 560 and 1000. So after we got very successful on those two models in 2015 and 16, we start to got the idea that we really need to improve the flagship model. At that time, the HE6 was the old flagship model, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of supporters over that model.
Still.
Yeah.
Even
now there are a lot of supporters.
Yes.
So as the hobbyist, I totally understand what they are thinking about. They always use the big amplifier to drive it so that they can benefit from the output and then to get as low distortion as they can.
Because you need a serious overhead and you're not
Yeah.
taxing out. Yeah.
Yes. So, but with that situation, there are a lot of returns because they have their amplifier is too big. They actually burn the headphones.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and
Yes.
then and also even though it's in the high voltage, the distortion is relatively low, but always be some low volume details need to be improved. That is actually the reason I want to make the SUSVARA. I want to make it can be can be driven by the very high output amplifier to get the best, but also at the same time I want to show more low volume details.
Yes.
So we actually generate a whole bunch of different prototypes of of the SUSVARA, so the result is that is the SUSVARA, the very SUSVARA final product is not the best measurement prototype. So it's actually combined a good measurement and good good objective listening experience together.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are human. We are not a robot. Yeah.
Been
So-
saying that for years.
Yeah.
It's the balance of the two, not
Yeah.
just measurements. So,
Yeah. So yeah, the measurement is actually mimic your ears, mimic your brain, right? So so sometimes the measurement is different from the person's actual experience. In such a situation, we followed human being, not following the machine.
yeah.
Yeah. So so that is the background, and I still remember that, in 2017 when we about to release it, we actually got some misunderstanding from the previous fans of especially HE6, but after all, I was very released after seeing that actually finally people accept this idea and this model. So I appreciate very much for our supporters and fans. Yeah.
It's one of those transducers where it showcases what equipment's behind it, no matter where you go. I've not hit the ceiling of the drivers yet where it's gone, okay, SUSVARA is taxi now, that's it. We can hear everything from this, but this setup and this setup is pretty much identical, you're good. It's always the equipment behind the drivers. It's so transparent in regards to its reproduction. And that's where the true hobbyists come in with the SUSVARA sort of story, where everybody wants to try this amp, that DAC, this DAC, and the higher you go up in the better DACs you get, the better quality of control, resolution, amplifier, you're still going to get more out of SUSVARAs, more and more.
Sure.
And I've been doing this for 3 straight years.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
quite remarkable.
Yeah.
We're still using it as a reference headphone for the channel, and I think a lot of people are, as the de facto headphone to measure headphone. The question always comes up, how is it comparing to SUSVARAs? So the work's paying off, it's there. I have a question that I've been intrigued by, and there's a lot of, we don't know if it's misinformation or just perception or what. Has there been different variations of the material type for the variations of SUSVARAs? Because I know we changed from 2.5 to 3.5 in the headphone adapters and stuff, but there, I've heard I think now about probably 22 separate SUSVARAs, and today I can go up to at least 40 separate units. The majority of them sound the same, but there have been 1 or 2 occasionally that sound a little warmer and a little bit different, and it's been measured slightly differently. What would you say that these are towards? Are these the older SUSVARAs, or is it just a manufacturing thing that occasionally crops up where some of them might measure a little better than others? It's a thing. It's something that crops up a lot, and it's rare. So it's a very, very strange situation. So it's could be a combination of pad breaking or the driver type, or the change between the 2.5 variant to the 3.5. And I'm curious on your take on that, because obviously there's thousands of SUSVARAs out there now,
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I have to tell everybody that we are not a DIY company.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are serious, as I mentioned before, that since from 2011 to 2005, we actually we set up the lab. We try to do everything being quantitative.
Yes.
So everything is according to mathematics.
Yes.
Do very accurate measurement. So try to do things
As consistently as possible,
yeah,
right? To drive it. Yeah.
Yeah, and serious. Okay,
Yeah.
so here I have to say, all SUSVARAs, their sound quality
Is identical.
I cannot say 100% identical, but I have to say that with the time going, if it is the running time is identical, the sound quality is very, very close.
Okay.
Okay. So actually, I can give you a lot of stories. Not only our brands. So I started to listen to headphones and audiophiles since later 90s. Okay. So I actually experienced a lot of different headphones.
Yes.
I still remember that in 2000 to 2005, in that period of time, Sennheiser actually dominated the market. The 580 or 600, people talks about how many revisions they actually released.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm one. At that time, I did not start up yet, so I was one of the hobbyists.
Yes. Okay.
So I actually purchased several pairs, and then for some heavily used pair and some lighter used pair.
Okay.
So actually the result of the experiment is like this. I changed the ear pad from a heavily used one to a brand new one. Actually, it significantly changed the sound quality. And in other words, run-in time is important, and then the run-in the ear pad
is
also significantly changed the
Yes.
sound.
we can see actual data of this, the actual measurements of this as well.
Yes.
That
Yes.
it's basically the room of the speakers, right? So
Yeah.
you're changing the density, I suppose, thickness. There's a lot of
Yes.
things that breaks in. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There have been headphones that I've tested myself, brand new and old, side by side,
Yeah.
literally just to keep one of them as the control. And the difference after, like, when the pads have truly broken in,
Yeah.
has been remarkable. Especially, it's usually in the treble region a lot as well.
Sure. Yeah, when you do the measurement, you actually also see the difference. The ear pads, if it is old, it become loose, and then there will be more exposure to the ear. Then there will be a lot more sound leaking than the brand new one. Sometimes, the leaking of the sound actually changes the Q value.
Right.
Right. So it
And it
will,
might be perceptibly be nicer for that person listening because
Yeah.
they might be a bit too sensitive to a certain frequency in a subtle
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can promise that the only change from the 2.5 to 3.5 version of SUSVARA is that it is
Just the adapters.
just the socket.
That's
Just the socket.
fascinating.
Yeah. So also you think about this. Even we are relatively known in this industry, but the total volume, the total quantities we make, even in the whole industry, is quite very limited comparing to the consumer level market.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So how come we make a revision and we change the technology while we are making the product? You're gonna actually add a lot more cost,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I have to say, you have to think about the ear pad, also the cable, because the cable will oxidize from time to time. It's copper.
Okay. So
Okay. So
you've got that variable there too as well to actually think about. Okay.
Yeah. So when you do the measurement, also another reason is that there might be some because the planar headphones is about the conductive coating on the diaphragm.
Right.
And it's very, very thin. So to control the ohms, the resistor of the diaphragm of the ohms is actually way more difficult comparing to the dynamic. Because dynamic is actually the wire.
Yes.
And the wire can be evenly being distributed more accurate than the planar. So if there is like a few ohms difference, it won't change the sound quality that much.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's actually the Q value changed from the ear pad. You can both notice that from the measurement. Also, you can hear it. Yeah, so that part is way more sensitive.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for answering that question, and that puts that one, I suppose, to rest a little bit, doesn't it?
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
My other second question and final
Yes.
question, and I'll let you go, I promise,
Oh, sure,
is
sure.
swinging over to the Shangri-La Senior.
Yes.
The development of these transducers alongside the SUSVARA, the Shang Senior came out, I'm trying to remember, 2018, is that correct?
Oh.
Or was it earlier than that?
You know, I forgot it. You know, even myself.
Yeah.
But you know what? All my memory about the Shangri-La Senior developing is full of painful. Yeah. So it should be around that time, but it's very very painful. You know, for every detail of that research project, you know, we always be lose for a few times before we get successful.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've tested
Yes.
everything. It feels as though I've gone through the super flagship all the way down. It is right now the
Yeah.
most transparent driver on the market, right, as of 2024, without a doubt.
Thank you.
I want to ask you one question about electrostatic drivers and the loss of tension. Do you find that when tension gets lost on the driver, that the frequency response and the performance changes exponentially from one to the other? Because in my testing, I don't have measurement rigs to actually do it, so I do a lot of things pretty much by ear. And then I asked you guys, because there was a demo unit I was doing the review on the Shang Senior on, and then I heard another one, and then I said, okay, let's try just one more that's brand new, like, because this one had been around for like 5 years. It's been on the review circuit for a long, long time.
Yes.
And it was night and day. Bass response, the treble region. So do you think it's down to the pads again, or the transducer tension? Always difficult to say.
It's always difficult to say because the electrostatic headphones, their diaphragm is way more sensitive than the planars.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not only the diaphragm tension itself, it's actually the coating, and also there are protection layers.
Yes.
So you know all this can impact the sound quality very very much.
And this coating on the transducer, does that wear out? Does it degrade over time? What are the chances of like this sort of, not Shang Tsung, just in general of electrostatics? The coating, does that kind of degrade with those high voltages, I suppose? And
well, it actually it's a very interesting question. I have some. You know, I used to be a collector to purchase all kinds of old headphones.
Yeah.
Before I started my business, I wrote the history in Chinese. I wrote the history book of the Walkman, Discman headphones in between 1970s to 2000.
Yeah.
Well, that book was published in 2003 in China.
Okay.
So I did notice that there are some 1970s, 1960s electrostatic headphones. They still work.
Yes.
In 2000.
I think it's like the Lambda from Stax, that I believe those ones, right? And there are others, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, I actually have several models from Stax, from Audio Technica.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how exactly there's some quality when they were new, but even the old models, even the experience of 20, 30 years, they still actually sound decent.
Yeah.
So the question here is that, we have to consider what exactly the change either on the coating or on the diaphragm or on the protection layers or the oxidation of the stators. There are so many parameters need to be considered.
Gotcha.
So
it's not as simple as
Yeah. So we need to check the sample one by one, and we will get some answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I took up so much time, but I really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.